Hi, my name is Mark. So if you haven't noticed already, this is the third episode of my YAIT series, You Ask, I Teach. And I highly suggest to check out the other episodes, because even though they may not be necessarily related to this one, nor have the exact same topic, there may be some things you can learn from those videos. For instance, the first one is about adding some extra chords to your 12-bar blues, therefore learning how to add those extra chords in any situation you want. Well, if I was to mention every single option you have, I'd have to do a 2-hour video, but if you check out YAIT number 1, you'll get a good introduction to it. The second episode is kind of a hack/trick to do fusion style soloing, kind of Guthrie Govan style. You can check those out in the card section right there. And if you aren't yet caught up, even though the name is pretty generic and self-explanatory, this is a series where I pretty much teach anything you guys leave in the comment section below. Well, guitar and or music related, of course. All you have to do is leave a comment on the comment section below with the hashtag YAIT. Just like my mate João Hudson, which is an awesome guy and you should probably check him out on social media. He is much more active on Instagram than I am. Links for his social media will be below, but he left a comment saying, well, please do a video about the modes. And those who follow my content know that I've made quite a few videos on the modes and scales and whatsoever. So I asked my buddy exactly what he wanted to know about the modes. And he said, well, I kinda understand the modes, but there's quite a lot of people that think modes are really weird and scary and hard to understand when that's not necessarily the case. And I agree, depending on how you try to understand the modes, or depending on how they're taught to you, you may leave with a full understanding of the modes, or you may leave as confused as you came in, if not more. As I mentioned before, even though I've made a couple of videos on this, like why your modes don't really sound like modes, and one of my earlier videos talking about music theory explained for guitarists talks about modes and a whole lot of other stuff, I decided I'd give another take on this. But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You're probably aware that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channels' videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still really may not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my content or the content of your favorite creators, you really should subscribe and turn on all the notifications. And since that may or may not work, I highly suggest you follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and jamming over backing tracks, and generally whatever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post there about my videos. Links for the usual suspects will be below, like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but in general, at Marky Takes Guitar. Oh, and since you're down there, please consider leaving a like, and perhaps share this video on social media. I'd highly appreciate it. So yeah, I guess now we can get straight into it. Okay, so talking about the modes, I think something that really worries people is that they start easy by learning the major scale. For instance, let's take the C major scale. And then they start learning all these other scales and chords and names, and don't get me wrong, they're all important. If you really want to grasp the modes, you really need to know all those scale positions and names. But if you're a noob to this, to all this theory/modes gibberish, I think you may start to get it a little bit better with this example. You probably know that the notes of that scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then we get back to C again, right? When you get to that C, you can start the scale all over again. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and so on and so forth. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's the basic gist of it. Now when it comes to applying it, it's pretty simple. If you have a C major chord, you can play your C major scale over it. And it won't sound bad at all. It won't sound terribly musical, but it will sound good. Then when it comes to melody making or soloing, because you don't really want to just play, knowing this C major scale doesn't mean you need to play all of those notes. These are some of the notes that sound good with that chord. And even if you just play notes of the major scale randomly, it will probably still sound good. What you really want to know afterwards is how to apply that skill musically. And since that's not exactly the point of this video, and you may want to know about it, I'll leave a video on the card section right there, where I focus on just that, on how to apply any scale you want the easiest way possible. But getting back to the notes, it's important to note that even though these are some of the notes that work well against that C major chord, some notes will sound better than others. Again, if I play you the C major chord, and I just choose random notes from the C major scale to play with the chord, you'll probably hear that some sound better than others, right? And you're probably thinking, wait, but that's weird. Didn't you just say that all of those notes were some of the notes that sounded good with the C major chord? Why didn't some of them sound as nice as the others? Well, this is where we get into the modes part of it. And I know we haven't talked about all of the other modes, but it's easier if we just start out with the major scale. Well, this is mostly about the notes in the chord. For instance, we were playing all of those notes over the C major chord, right? Well, the notes on the C major chord are C, E, and G. But if you really want to make it sound good, when you're playing notes from that scale, you should probably target some of the notes in the chord. Or putting it in the blandest way possible and easiest way to explain it, if you're just playing your C major scale, one note after the other on top of that C major chord, you want to start your C major scale on one of the notes of the chord. As I mentioned before, the C major chord has the notes C, E, and G. So when you start playing your C major scale, you'll probably want to start on the note C, or on the note E, or on the note G. Let's take a look at what happens when we play the C major scale starting on C, E, and G, and what happens when we start, for instance, on F or on D, which aren't really notes on our C major chord. I think we can agree that it wasn't like starting on the D and F notes sounded bad, but the ones where we started playing something on chord tones really sounded better, right? Well, this can make us segue to the modes part of it. When we talk about modes, we really talk about modes of a certain scale. For instance, in this case, we're in C major, right? So when we talk about modes, we're probably referring to the modes of the C major scale. And what are the modes of the C major scale? Well, if you start your C major scale on C, it's one mode of the C major scale, it's one position. If you start and end your C major scale on D, again, the exact same notes just starting and ending on D, that's another mode / position. If we start it on E, whether we do it down here or down here, that's a whole other mode / position. And why am I saying modes / positions? Well, since E is the third note of the C major scale, 1, 2, 3. If we play the third mode of C major on E right here, again, I'm just starting the C major scale on E. If I play it over C major, I'll still be playing the C major scale, not the third mode, because I'm playing over C. I'm in the third position. I'm really targeting the notes of C. So it's not like I'm playing a scale in E. I'm playing over a C chord, so I'm playing a C scale, just starting on an E note. But the C major chord isn't the only chord in the C major scale. You've probably learned songs in the key of C major, right? We have a bunch of chords. Again, we have 7 notes on our C major scale, so we have 7 chords on that scale. And in the same way we mentioned that if we're on the C major tonality and we are playing a C major chord, playing the C major scale is giving us some of the notes that sound good along with that chord. The same thing happens with all of the other modes and chords. For instance, in the key of C major, the second chord of C major is D minor. Or perhaps up here. Well, again, if you're in the key of C major and you're playing a D minor chord, and you want to play over that D minor chord, you probably want to play some of the notes that sound good with that chord, right? If you just play your C major scale, it probably won't sound very good, because you're starting on a C. You're not really starting on one of the notes of the D minor chord. You're not really focusing on the D minor part. The notes of the D minor chord are D, A, and F. So knowing that you're in the C major tonality and you're playing over a D minor chord, you'll probably want to play the notes of the C major scale, but you will probably want to focus on the notes D, A, and F. Well, that's where the mode part of it comes in. If you're playing over D, you'll probably want to play the mode of the D note. And again, what's the mode of the D note? It's the exact same set of notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, but you'll for instance start on the D note. This position is probably a little bit more comfortable for this chord position. Or you'll choose another position, but still maintaining the notes of the chord. We have the notes D, A, and F, so for instance if we start the C major scale on A, it still sounded good with the chord because the note A is in the D minor chord. As I mentioned before, we would be playing the C major chord, but if we start our set of notes on A, it probably won't sound that good. Because you're not focusing on the C part of it. So because we're playing over a D minor chord in the key of C major, even though we're using the notes of the C major scale, we aren't exactly playing the C major scale. We're playing the mode of the note D of the C major scale. In this case, the second mode of the C major scale, because D is the second note of C. 1, 2. And even if you're playing over the D minor chord on the C major tonality and you start on an A, the notes of the D minor chord are D, A, and F. You're still not playing the mode of the C major scale of A. You're playing the mode of the C major scale of the D note, just starting on A. Because the chord you're playing over is what dictates what that scale sounds like. And the names part of it, which is where some people get lost and confused, is only to make communication faster. I told you before that this was the C major scale, right? The natural C major scale. But it has a fancier name, aka the name of the mode of the C major scale that starts on C, that focuses on C. This is called Ionian. All of the other ones have names. This is Dorian. This is Phrygian. This is Lydian. This is Mixolydian. This is Aeolian. This is Locrian. Why all of these weird Greek names? Well, simply put, I just told you that this was Ionian, right? If you were talking to another musician and you said, just play something in the C major scale, you may be referring of the first mode, aka playing over just a C major chord, or you can be talking about playing in the C major tonality, aka just perhaps playing a bunch of chords in the C major tonality. But if you tell him, okay, let's just perhaps play a vamp on the Ionian mode, he knows exactly that what you mean is, let's play something over that first position of the C major scale, focusing on the C part of it. And even perhaps you've seen in a bunch of backing tracks that the Dorian term shows up a lot, especially in that funky style of playing. Well, if you wanted to communicate to another musician that you wanted to be in kind of a D minor tonality, but you wanted that specific funky sound, it will be much easier for everyone if you just tell everyone, okay, let's play over D Dorian, if everyone's speaking the same language. So summing this up real quick, what's the purpose of the modes? Well, if you're playing over an E minor chord in the key of C major, you just play your C major scale. Since there is no C on the E minor chord, there's only E, B, and G, it will probably not sound very good. But if you focus on some of the notes of the chord, for instance, if you start your C major scale but on an E, even though you're still playing notes of the C major scale, since you're playing over an E chord, you're playing the E mode of the C major scale. Even if you don't necessarily start on E, if you're playing over an E chord, you're focusing on the sound of the E modality of the C major scale. This doesn't sound the same way as this. Because the context you're giving to those notes is different. You may argue that if you're playing over a C major chord, and you're playing on this position, the position starting on E right here, that you're playing on the position of the E mode of the C major scale. You're playing in that position. But you're not playing that mode. You're just playing in that position. This only becomes the E mode if you give it that context. If you give it another context, it will sound much different. It will mean a different thing. If you just think about it like that, you have a chord progression C, A, F, G. You can just be playing on the first position right here. But each time you move chords, you'll be focusing on different notes. It will sound different. even though you stayed on the first position, on the position of your regular C major scale or the Ionian mode, each time you moved chords, you were playing over the mode of each chord. When we were playing over C, we were playing the mode of C. When we moved to the A minor chord, we were playing the A mode of the C major scale. The same thing in F and G. Again, I hope this wasn't confusing. I know sometimes it's harder to make these videos work. Sometimes it's easier to explain face to face because you can see when someone is understanding something or not. While on video, you're kind of stuck with whatever I'm saying. But I hope this helped. And if it didn't, stay tuned till the end of the video. I have a giveaway that you might be interested in that may help you with figuring out all of this stuff. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in any way possible. And if it was, please leave me a comment below. Do you have anything to add to this discussion? Did you agree? Did you not agree? Was there something I missed? Something I should have said? Also, if you have any suggestions for videos, again, this is the series for it. Just leave a comment on this video or any of my other videos with the hashtag YAIT with whatever thing you want me to talk about. And if you've liked this video, I have a couple of other ones just like this one. As mentioned before, you can check out all of the other episodes of the YAIT series and about modes and scales like I mentioned before. You can check those out in the card section right there. But I have some other videos talking about songwriting, for instance, or talking about soloing and improvising. Some talking about other guitar players and or specific licks, so please check out some of my back catalog. As mentioned before, some videos will be on the card section and others will be on the end section of the end screen in just a couple of seconds, so please stay tuned. And as always, I'm giving away free one-on-one Skype lessons, and anyone can enter, but they are limited though, so you gotta be fast. And all you have to do to win one free Skype lesson and discounts on future lessons is to subscribe to my channel, turn on all the notifications, follow me on Instagram, and then DM me on Instagram or one of my other social medias if you want to follow those too, with screenshots, proving that you did everything mentioned before. And yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow me on social media, perhaps apply for those Skype lesson thingies. Please leave a comment to keep this YAIT series going. I'd highly appreciate if you guys could check out some of my other videos after this one, and yeah, cheers!